Here, until I let him leave, is Aaron Gulbranson of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, and he's joining us in studio, so I do not fear that we will have communication issues. Hello, Aaron.
How are you? Unless the rapture occurs and I'm left here by myself to carry on your show. You see what I did there? If the rapture happened, you're getting raptured on.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Hey, I'm sorry to do this on the air, but move his camera a little to his right, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Technical.
No, his right.
Here we
Hello.
go.
Hello. Well, now
There we go.
See?
why is my microphone not working? Oh, wait, it is. I just bumped something. All right, you get it? You get it over there?
Yeah, we're good now.
Are we all good?
Live radio.
Let's get the squirrels going in the right direction. Now, we were talking about the rapture.
Yes, sir.
I know from personal experience that if anybody's left behind, it's me, pal. It's
Okay.
me. How's it going? How's
Yeah.
everything going with Tennessee Faith and Freedom?
Everything's going great. We, just getting ready for session. Of course, you have a lot of things going on in the world with the monumentous announcement of the school choice initiative or, the education freedom accounts. So that's a big deal. Of course, we're gearing up for, as we've been talking about for months and months and months. And some of us wondered you're wondering why we haven't talked about our human trafficking legislation in a few weeks. It's because we're waiting for it back from the lawyers that write it. So we'll have some announcements,
For those that don't understand this process, I think it might be, pull the curtain back a little bit and help you understand that what happens, and you tell me when I'm wrong, that groups of people invested in solving a problem get together and they say, these are the priorities. This is how we want to do this. This is what we want all of this to look like. And then you have to hand it off to individuals that have to craft the language that's the actual legislation because there's so much lawyer gobbledygook that has to go in there that most of us don't get. And then you get it back and you get to preview it and you get to look over it and make sure that everything's as you wanted it to be. But it has to get the lawyer's fingerprints all over it before it can get to the legislative process.
Right. And when you're working collaboratively, there's hundreds of those instances occurring at the same exact time. And then, sometimes it comes back and it's like, wait, no, that wasn't my intent. But you run it through all the stakeholders. I mean, the biggest thing when you're trying new initiatives is to run it by not, with our organization, we run it by legislators. And the legislator might say something like, well, we already did that, or that would have this ripple effect and that sort of thing. So it's very collaborative. It takes a while. This is the not sexy side of it because it's just a lot of hurry up and wait and work on the computer and write and blah, blah, blah. It's not the, big press conferences and all that fun stuff. So,
but we will expect something. I know that it will take a backseat in terms of interest. I don't know that it necessarily should. I think it should take a side seat. It should be rather in the front seat with the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, but it will probably take a little bit of a backseat, but it's still coming in the General Assembly.
Yes, it most definitely is. Nothing has changed. The General Assembly has already made their commitment during special session. The governor's already made this commitment to work with us on this issue. We've got the momentum going. And we're very, very thrilled with the governor's desire to expand school choice in the state of Tennessee. So it's, our intention is to gut the human trafficking industry in the state of Tennessee. We're looking at doing that this session. And so at the very least, we're going to make a, significant amount of progress on that.
And where are you from a faith and freedom perspective with, I would think, but words are tricky things, that you've got freedom in your name and the Education Freedom Scholarship Fund has freedom in its name. So you guys will be simpatico. Do you have any concerns with this, or as we understand it, are you good to go with it?
As we understand it, we're good to go. I mean, the only thing I'll say is once I see the final version, but I mean, listen, this is one of those concepts that you should cheer every time it comes up. Our perspective, for example, is one of the problems that you have. I mean, there's many issues with the education system, but you can just look at the current generation of kids and how indoctrinated they are. And then also, oh, by the way, this big hairy thing called COVID exposed more problems in the institutions. So yes, no, anytime I grew up one of those weird kids. I have been personally, I was homeschooled. I was also went to public school and I also went to private school. And so I have
You had all three?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
wait, what order? Tell me the order. I'm curious. What was the order in that?
Let's see. Public, then moved, then private. Homeschool was only like 2 or 3 years. But
that's a portion.
Yeah, and it's mainly public and private. And then I also had the ability. I was a geek, so I graduated high school when I was 15.
I don't know that after you homeschool. I mean, was it hard to go back?
No, because I had a little bit of a different experience. For me, it was I'm doing this. You have a lot more freedom in what you're studying, and then I'm working at the same time. Right.
See, I don't have any kids, so I don't have any real world experience with it in 2023 to 2024. But I have enough experience to know that homeschooling as it was presented and as it was 25 years ago and homeschooling today are completely different animals.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah. But because homeschoolers have almost, and I think this legislation might encourage it. I'm not against it necessarily. Now, some liberals act as if this is, going to destroy public education, or it's going to create all of these de facto private schools that aren't really schools. But I think a lot of homeschoolers are going to be encouraged to get together and do some collective schooling.
I mean, a pretty good rule of thumb as a conservative is if you look at what Justin Jones is saying and just go the other direction, and if people are going with Justin Jones, then they're not right.
Wait, but this is going to, according to Gloria Johnson and J.R. Clemens and Justin Jones and some others, this is going to destroy, that's their word, not mine, destroy education in the state of Tennessee.
I might have a little more value for Justin Jones' opinion if he would ever answer questions about the sexual assault he was accused of covering up.
So right. You're so right. Summer of 2020, everyone. Credible accusations. I got the receipts in case anybody wants them. Justin, you're invited to come on anytime you want and answer some of these questions or accusations.
I did learn something at the governor's announcement, the school choice announcement last week. Apparently, Justin Jones wears lips in his shoes. Did you see that picture?
Those looked like those almost look like Doc Martens.
Yeah, they were Doc Martens. He's well, as Donald Trump would say, he's a small-footed man. Other people say that means something. I'm not saying.
Let's talk about this. That the reason you're here, that because you know more about what happened in Nashville over the weekend than I do, but I knew this. So over the weekend, and I didn't get into it yesterday, pro-Palestinian protesters marched through the streets of Philadelphia. They congregated outside of a restaurant called Goldie, which is a falafel restaurant owned by an American-Israeli chef by the name of Michael Solomonov. They vandalized the front door. They vandalized the windows. They screamed, "Goldie, Goldie, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide." Protesters in Philadelphia stood outside of this Jewish and Israeli deli for hours, protesting outside of it and damaging the facility. Everybody's condemning this. I don't know how many people are doing anything about it. I said from the beginning that you cannot squeeze a note card between the pro-Palestinian protesters and the pro-Hamas protesters because I believe them to be the same people.
They're exactly the same people. You look at the events that are going on in Nashville, you see that, 6 months or so, the Tennessee started an expose on the training of these leftist Marxist protesters. And, that was the Planned Parenthood and all these things leading up to special session. And if you just drive by or walk around it and, have people taking some footage, you can see, okay, there is DSA members. They're providing security for these so-called pro-Palestinian protesters. You have, this past time, they were blasting a gentleman by the name of Vermont, who, I'm going to give him a shout out at Mr. Do-Gooder on Instagram, because Vermont has been for weeks doing interviews with some of these people. And when you put a camera in front of them, they show you how hateful they are and how ignorant they are and how much they hate Israel and Jews. And of course, so that they doubled and tripled their security because, a black conservative was exposing their views and that sort of thing. But it's the same thing. You have the Democrat Socialists of America, there's no daylight between most of the Democrat Party in this movement either.
No.
Especially in Nashville. If you've never left like East Tennessee or certain parts of the state, you'd be shocked and dumbfounded to find out that there's a really hardcore Marxist contingent here in Nashville, and it's scary.
These protests that are happening in Nashville are going on every week.
Yep, and I will say, so this, there's kind of a, without getting too geeky about it, but there's kind of a matrix in terms of chatter that you can look at to see where violence is going to happen, and they've escalated their chatter. For weeks it was, solidarity with Palestine. Now, and their advertisements, of course, they're always chanting the awful phrase from the river to the sea, which is the calling for the universal killing of all Jews in the land of Israel. But this last one on Saturday at 5:00 was the first one they had at night, was the first one that they called it, shut it down for Palestine. Mm-hmm. Then they went and marched down Broadway, and they had, they put their
some of them were claiming that they had shut down, quote unquote, shut down Broadway.
Yeah, they were claiming that. Yeah, and they marched down Broadway. I don't know exactly how long they were on Broadway for, because I can think of some tourists that would have been ticked off about the whole situation, but it's dangerous. Listen, there's going to be some pro-Israel resolutions coming out of this General Assembly in January. I would encourage them, as we did in the past, to have a higher level of security because of this.
Part of me wants to, and I'm not going to, because there's another part of me that understands the greater problem here and the serious nature of the problem. But part of me wants to recognize that most of these people, I feel like they don't know what the hell they're chanting. They don't know what the hell they're saying. They don't understand. Maybe some of the younger individuals in these groups, they want to be a part of something that they've read about, 1960s era Vietnam War protests, these sorts of things, and they think that this is a cool, snazzy thing to do, not understanding the serious bloodshed that we've talked about in the past and potential bloodshed in the future as a result of some of this rhetoric.
Well, but also then look at the Harvard-Harris poll. What was it, 43% of all college students surveyed were in favor of not just the, Palestine, quote unquote, but Hamas. So, and this is a recurring issue with the younger generation. Obviously, it takes them a while to grow up. Sometimes they don't. But in 1939, there was a Harvard poll before Harris came along, and it said the plurality of college students supported Hitler. This is what we're dealing with.
All right, quick timeout, 1:51. Aaron Gulbranson's with us with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. There is another rally scheduled for this weekend. We'll talk about that next.
Promo code Christmas99.
Super Talk 99.7 WT in a couple of minutes before we'll hand off to Mac Morey in the newsroom. And he's gathering headlines as I'm looking at him. He's gathering headlines as we speak. They're apparently on the floor because he's bending over right now, gathering said headlines, and he will have them up and available to you moments from now. Right now, Aaron Gulbranson of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition talking about some of the past protests in the city of Nashville, these pro-Palestinian / pro-Hamas protests. I almost don't say both of those things because I think they're almost mutually exclusive. And look, I get that there's a small percentage, but what I've argued for weeks now in the aftermath of the October 7th event is that the Palestinian people that exist that want Hamas out, that's a minority of the people over there. And I feel bad for those folks.
Because as you've said many, many times, Hamas has been duly elected. I don't think there were any hanging chads in those elections, but I don't make the distinction whatsoever. If you were out there chanting from the river to the sea,